Hey there, sleepyheads. Welcome back to the channel. Before we drift into tonight's tale of the complete history of Adventure Time, I'd love to know, where in the world are you watching from tonight? And what time is it for you right now? Drop it in the comments below. It's always magical seeing how far and wide this sleepy little community reaches. All right, lights low, blankets up, let's begin. Before there were kingdoms, before there were wars, and long before the heroes we know today, there was silence. Not the silence of an empty room, but the deep, ancient hush of a universe just beginning to breathe. In the world of Adventure Time, the land of Ooo feels so alive, so colorful, that it's easy to forget that it was once shaped out of nothingness from forces older than memory itself. This beginning is not told to us directly in the show. Instead, it lingers in whisper, hidden in symbol, in the scattered tales of cosmic beings, and in the strange feeling that the world of Ooo is part of something much larger, something eternal. And so when we talk about the primordial ages, we're not just piecing together history. We're gazing into a dream that existed before the first heartbeat of time. The first to stir in this dream were the elementals: fire, ice, candy, and slime. Four essences would echo across eternity, appearing again and again as rulers, kingdoms, and even personality. These elementals were not rulers at first. They were more like the breath of nature, embodying the raw ingredients of existence. Fire burned not only to destroy, but to renew. Ice preserved, holding memory and stillness. Candy nurtured sweetness, warmth, and life. Slime bound things together, endlessly shifting and renewing. It's comforting to imagine them as guardians, like sleeping giants watching over the forming land, yet they were not always benevolent. Each element carried its shadow. Fire could consume as easily as it gave warmth. Ice could freeze not just water, but hearts. Candy's sweetness could suffocate in excess, and slime could smother as much as it connected. From the very start, balance was the fragile thread that held their existence together. And even beyond the elementals, there were other presents, cosmic beings that existed in silence, drifting between stars. The most mysterious among them was the Catalyst Comet. Imagine it, a great streak of light, born from beyond the edges of the universe, descending every 1,000 years with the weight of destiny. It was not simply a comet of stone and ice, but a messenger of change, carrying within it the potential to reshape the world. Heroes and villains alike were tied to it. Even Finn himself would later be revealed as one of its chosen children. But in these earliest days, the comet was only a silent traveler, waiting for its time to touch the Earth. The primordial ages of Adventure Time were never shown in bright colors or clear lines. Instead, they were hinted at in stories of gods, kings, and ancient creatures. And perhaps that's what makes them feel so dreamlike. Like half-remembered memories from a time before we were born. The elementals, the comets, and the slow stirring of magic formed a quiet stage where all that would come later could unfold. It is in this stage that the first conflicts were born. Not battles with swords or armies, but quiet tensions between forces. Fire clashed with ice, opposites that could never stay apart for long. Candy's sweetness and slime's chaos pressed against one another, each seeking to dominate the land. But just as quickly as these forces opposed one another, they found ways to weave together, creating landscapes of fire and frost, rivers of honey, and marshes of slime. These strange lands, primal and unshaped, were the first sketch of the world that would one day be Ooo. Close your eyes for a moment and picture it. A world half frozen, half burning, with mountains of crystallized sugar rising in the distance, and valleys of shifting green ooze stretching far and wide. No castles, no houses, no kingdom, just raw, untamed beauty. The earth itself was alive, humming with the voices of the elements. It's a vision, both enchanting and eerie, as if creation itself was still unsure of what form it wanted to take. And in this uncertain beginning, another presence lingered. Not quite elemental, not quite cosmic. A force that represented not life or balance, but the inevitability of entropy. This was the seed of chaos, something that would one day take the form of beings like the Lich, or even Galb, the embodiment of disorder. Though silent in these early ages, It hovered like a shadow, reminding us that where there is creation, there will always be destruction, waiting quietly, the wing. The primordial ages were less a chapter of history and more a foundation of patterns of fire and frost, of sweetness and decay, of change and stillness. The world was not yet ready for heroes, but it was slowly carving a path for, preparing the land of Oo as if it were a stage being set before the play begins. Even the stars in the sky seemed to watch over this fragile, forming world. Some belonged to distant realms, others to cosmic rulers whose destinies were tied to Mars, to dimensions beyond counting, and to beings who could bend reality itself. Though they remained far away, their presence was already woven into the future of Oo, like faint threads that would one day be pulled into focus. And so, in the hush of the beginning, the land rested. The elementals moved in silence. The comet drifted in the void. Chaos lingered in shadow, and the earth itself dreamed, waiting for the day when its children would awaken. The story of these primordial times is like a puzzle made of fragments, scattered across episodes, comics, and quiet hints. To piece it together is to imagine a world where nothing was certain yet, where even the laws of nature had not settled. It was a time when magic was not just practiced but woven into the very air, when the earth itself could breathe, and when beings far larger than our imagination wandered across the horizon like shadows at dusk. Among these ancient presents, the elementals held a special role. They were not people as we think of them now. They were forces, vast and unshaped, their forms flickering between spirit and matter. One could imagine fire as a roiling storm of embers, ice as a drifting glacier that whispered in the wind, candy as a sweet bloom spreading across fields, and slime as endless tides that consumed and renewed everything in their path. These forces would later take on physical avatars, Princess Bubblegum as the avatar of candy, Slime Princess as the face of slime, Flame Princess embodying fire, and Patience St. Pim bearing the cold serenity of ice. But in the primordial ages, they were still dreams waiting to take form. And yet, even then, their personalities were beginning to echo. Fire burned with passion, ice with isolation, candy with nurturing warmth, and slime with adaptability. These essences did not just shape the land, they foreshadowed the way rulers themselves would embody their kingdom. But where there are rulers, even elemental ones, there are always mysteries beyond them. And one of the greatest mysteries was the arrival of the Catalyst Comet. Imagine, far above the forming world, a streak of radiant energy glowing against the blackness of space. Every 1,000 years it would descend upon the earth, carrying with it the potential for transformation. Some say it was destiny wrapped in stone, others that it was a test sent by the cosmos itself. The comet was not always kind. It did not choose sides, nor did it promise peace. Instead, it marked turning points. Heroes could be born from its arrival, so too could tyrants. In its wake, civilizations rose and fell, as if the comet itself was the hand turning the pages of history. We know Finn the human would one day be tied to this celestial force, but in the primordial age, the comet's role was only to watch and wait, its energy falling into the soil, shaping the possibilities of the land to come. The comet was not alone in its watching. Far away, the higher planes stirred. The king of Mars and Grob watched from the red planet, silent guardians of cosmic order. They were not yet involved in Oo's story, but their presence hinted that the world was not isolated. Oo was a single note in a much larger symphony, one that stretched across the stars, across dimensions, even across timelines. And in that larger, there was always discord. Galb, the embodiment of chaos and disorder, was already present in these early days, though unseen. Its presence was like the faint hum of static in a quiet room, barely noticed, but always there. If the elementals were balance and the comet was destiny, then Galb was inevitability, the reminder that creation cannot exist without destruction, that even the brightest flame will one day burn out. In many ways, the primordial ages were haunted by this shadow, a quiet foreshadowing of the struggles that Oo would face in the far future. Yet despite this looming shadow, the land itself was beautiful. Vast frozen oceans stretched across the north, where shards of ancient glaciers reflected the starlight. Volcanoes roared in the south, rivers of fire carving paths into the earth. Sweet, strange meadows began to grow, sticky and colorful, filled with plants that seemed almost playful. Slime swamps oozed across valleys, endlessly shifting their shapes. Each element carved its domain, leaving behind a tapestry of contrast. Picture yourself walking through it. One step across a field of sugar crystal that crunched softly beneath your feet. The next, into a stretch of obsidian rock, warm from rivers of lava flowing nearby. The air itself feels alive, humming with voices you can't quite understand, as if the land is dreaming while awake. It is not yet the cheerful ooh we know, but something far older and more surreal, like a painting before the artist has decided its final form. From this mixture of beauty and unease, the seeds of life began to take hold. Mutations stirred from deep within the earth, shaped by the strange balance of magic and leftover energy from events long before the Mushroom War. Some of these creatures were harmless, glowing softly in the dark like fireflies. Others were immense, towering beings whose forms seemed stitched together from different worlds. They would not last forever, many vanishing as quickly as they appeared, but they were the first flickers of life in a land still learning what it wanted to be. And so the primordial ages stretched on, quiet yet full of potential. The elementals whispered through the land, the comet lingered in the stars, and the cosmos watched patiently. These were not yet the days of kingdom, nor the time of heroes. They were the first breaths of a world waiting to awaken, its story unfolding not in battles or triumphs, but in the slow weaving of magic, matter, and mystery. As the world slowly stirred, time itself seemed to move differently. There were no calendars, no days to count, no clocks to measure the passing hours. Instead, the rhythm of existence was marked by the slow drifting of stars, the cooling of molten rivers, and the first whispers of wind through mountains of crystal stone. To speak of ages in this era is more poetic than literal. What we call the primordial ages may have lasted eons, or perhaps only moments in the eyes of cosmic beings. In the hush of creation, time was less a rule and more a gentle suggestion. In this timeless dawn, the elementals became more than background forces. Their essences began to entwine with the very soil, creating environments that reflected their nature. Fire-shaped volcanoes that pulsed like beating hearts, their smoke painting the sky with streaks of crimson. Ice sculpted jagged peaks and frozen ocean, preserving memories that had yet to be made. Candy seeped into fertile ground, giving birth to strange, sweet flora. Plants that glittered with sugar crystals in the moonlight. Slime spread into valleys, creating ever-changing marshes where nothing held a fixed form for long. These landscapes were not isolated. They touched and overlapped, creating zones of balance and zones of conflict. Imagine a place where fire and ice collided, steaming plains where glaciers met lava, forming rivers of boiling water, or where candy fields stretched too far, only to be swallowed by creeping slime that dissolved sugar into sticky pool. These borderlands were wild and unpredictable, but they carried a quiet beauty, as though the land itself was experimenting with what it could become. And perhaps it was, for the land of Ooh has always felt alive, almost conscious, as if it remembers the footsteps of every being who ever walked across it. In these earliest days, it may have been dreaming of its own potential, a dream shaped by the push and pull of elements, by the silent drift of comets, and by the faint, ever-present shadow of chaos waiting just beyond sight. The question arises, if the elementals existed from the beginning, why did they take on avatars later? The show hints at this mystery, suggesting that the essence of each element eventually needed a vessel. Perhaps it was because the forces alone could not guide themselves. They needed conscious will and personality. Or perhaps it was because Ooh itself longed for guardians who could speak, build, and care for the world in ways raw elements could not. Whatever the reason, the seeds of these avatars were already stirring in the primordial ages, waiting patiently until the time was right. But not all presences of that time were tied to the land. Beyond the horizon, Among the stars, greater beings watch. Some belong to dimensions far removed from Oo, existing in realms of thought, dreams, and cosmic law. The king of Mars sat upon his throne, his role not yet bound to the tail of Finn, but already intertwined with destiny itself. Prismo's time room lay dormant in another plane, untouched by mortal feet, but already shaping possibilities. The multiverse was vast, and Oo was only one fragile piece of it. Yet in its fragility, it carried something unique, something worth watching. And while these higher beings kept their distance, one presence drew closer. The Catalyst Comet, with its thousand-year rhythm, was both visitor and sculptor. In the primordial ages, it had already fallen many times, its energy sinking into the soil, birthing potential that would echo across generations. Perhaps the great beasts that roamed the early world were touched by it. Perhaps even the first stirrings of human life were shaped by its descent. To imagine the comet's path is to imagine a brush painting upon an endless canvas, each stroke leaving behind a destiny yet to unfold. Even in the silence, there were echoes of conflict. Fire strained against ice as though locked in an endless argument. Candy sought to spread while slime sought to dissolve, and beneath it all, hidden in the cracks of creation, the hum of Galb lingered. It is strange to think of Galb not as a villain, but as a principle, a truth as old as the cosmos itself. It did not seek to conquer in these days. It simply existed, embodying entropy, ensuring that every creation had the potential to unravel. Like the pause between breaths, Galb was the reminder that nothing could last forever. This delicate balance between elements, comets, and chaos was the true story of the primordial ages. It was less about events and more about pattern, creation and destruction, order and entropy, stillness and change. These patterns would repeat endlessly throughout O's history, manifesting in kingdoms, wars, and heroes. But here, in the beginning, they were quiet, almost gentle, as though the universe was humming softly to itself, waiting for someone to listen. And though no humans walked the land yet, though no castles rose above the horizon, the stage was being set. The land of Oo was like a lullaby not yet sung, a melody waiting for voices. Every mountain, every river, every spark of fire or breath of frost was part of that preparation. And somewhere, perhaps unnoticed, the first threads of life stirred, tiny, fragile, uncertain, yet full of promise. These would one day grow into creatures, then societies, then heroes. But for now, they rested in silence, held gently in the cradle of the primordial world. If you were to close your eyes and imagine this age, it would not be loud or chaotic. It would be vast and still, painted with glowing comets, shifting elements, and the soft hum of destiny. It would feel like a dream too large to understand, yet comforting in its mystery. For even in its strangeness, the primordial world of Oo was already telling us something simple. The beginnings are not sudden, but slow and patient, like the first flicker of dawn across a sleeping sky. As the world settled into its strange pattern, the primordial ages drifted on like a vast, unending dream. The land was alive with a possibility, but it was also fragile, balanced on the edge between creation and collapse. Fire still smoldered in the south, spilling its molten lifeblood into the earth. Ice still whispered across the north, freezing seas into palaces of glittering glass. Candy continued to bloom in fertile soil, roots sinking deeper into the land while slime crept and churned in its endless cycles of dissolution and rebirth. Each element had staked its claim, but none had yet become sovereign. It was a time when landscapes themselves were character. Mountains groaned and shifted as if trying to stretch. Rivers of glowing nectar carried sweetness into empty valleys. Forests of crystal grew taller each day only to collapse under their own shimmering weight, scattering shards that sparkled like stars. The land did not remain still, for stillness was not yet part of its nature. Everything moved, changed, and dissolved as if testing boundaries. It was the sketchbook of existence, pages filled with endless attempts at form. And yet, in this flux, the idea of balance was always present. The primordial ages were not about one element conquering another, nor one force deciding the fate of the rest. They were about coexistence, however uneasy. The fire that scorched the earth also created fertile ash for candy fields to grow. The ice that froze rivers preserved the slime that waited to move again when the thaw came. Even chaos had a role, ensuring that nothing remained stagnant. To see this age is to see a world learning to breathe, its every inhale and exhale shaping the landscape. But perhaps the most haunting aspect of this time is the sense of inevitability. For while the elements experimented with creation, the comet continued its silent cycle in the heavens. Every 1,000 years it would fall, stirring the soil with potential, as if planting seeds of destiny. And far away, beings like the King of Mars, Grob Gob Glob Grod, and Prismo existed outside of time, watching the slow formation of a stage where great dramas would one day unfold. Ooh, in all its strangeness, was already being chosen. It was not just another planet in the multiverse. It was a place where forces far beyond its borders would converge. And in that choosing, the shadow of Golb lingered most of all. For what is destiny without opposition? Creation without unraveling? Even in the quiet of the primordial ages, Golb's truth existed. Not in the form of monsters, nor in battles or wars, but as the silent certainty that everything one day ends. The show would later remind us of this in Golb's final appearance, but the truth is that its presence was there from the start, like a faint chord beneath the melody of the world. To dream of beginnings, to accept ending, and in the hush of creation, that truth was already written. As ages slipped by, the first hints of more tangible beings began to stir. Shapes moved within the candy field. Life that would one day become creatures of sugar and gum. In the frozen north, whispers of spirits lingered in the snow, precursors of things yet to come. The firelands rumbled with proto-creatures of flame, roaring sparks into the night sky. And the slime marshes bubbled with entities that could split, merge, and reform endlessly, testing the limits of identity itself. These were not yet the familiar rulers of Ooh, but they were their ancestors in essence, small echoes of the avatars the elements would eventually choose. To imagine walking through this early land is to wander through a dream where nothing feels entirely real. A creature may appear before you, glowing faintly, only to dissolve into mist when touched. The ground itself may shift beneath your feet, as if alive, as if deciding whether to support you or swallow you whole. The air is heavy with magic, not the practiced spells of wizards, but raw magic, like the pulse of the world itself. Every step would feel uncertain, but also sacred, as though you were witnessing the very birth of possibility. What makes the primordial ages so enchanting is that they resist definition. They are not told as stories of kings or battles, but as whispers of forces too large for one mind to hold. And yet, they are essential to understanding everything that followed. The wars, the kingdoms, the heroes, and the tragedy. All of them grow from this beginning, like branches from a single seed. Without the primordial age, Ooh would not exist as it does, and perhaps, in some quiet way, neither would the adventures we cherish. When we watch Adventure Time, we often focus on the characters we love: Finn, Jake, Marceline, Bubblegum, Ice King. But beneath their stories lies the foundation of something older, something timeless. The primordial ages remind us that their struggles, their growth, and even their love are all part of a much larger cycle. A cycle of creation and destruction, of comets and chaos, of balance and entropy. It is humbling to think that even the smallest moment in Ooh is tied to this grand beginning. As the primordial ages drew to a close, the stage was prepared. The elements had settled enough to create recognizable land. The comet had seeded enough destiny for future generations. Chaos had left its mark, ensuring that no creation would be eternal. The first beings were stirring, carrying within them the potential to build, to destroy, and to dream. And the land of Ooh, no longer just a swirling canvas of raw element, began to take on the shape that would carry its story forward. In this quiet transition, the primordial ages faded, not with an explosion, nor with a war, but with a sigh. The world exhaled, and with that breath, history truly began. What came next would be the age of kingdoms, of rulers born from elements, and of shadows cast by the mistakes of the old world. But at the heart of it all, the memory of the primordial ages remained, like the echo of a lullaby sung long ago. And so, as we drift from this beginning into the next chapter, remember that every story of Ooh rests on this foundation. Every character, every struggle, every fragment of lore is a ripple from these first days. The primordial ages may be gone, but they are never truly lost. They linger in the ice, in the fire, in the candy and slime, in the comets and the chaos, in every breath of the land. The world of Adventure Time is, in its heart, a dream, and this was the dream's first awakening. Now that we've wandered through the primordial ages, the timeless cradle from which all things in Adventure Time slowly arose, it is time to step forward into a darker, more fragile chapter. A chapter where the echoes of our own world are mirrored back at us. Tonight we drift into the shadowed memory of the Mushroom War, a quiet apocalypse that ended one age and gave rise to the land of Ooh as we know it. Picture the world, not in fire or in chaos at first, but in its ordinary hum. Skyscrapers reaching into pale skies, streets lit by neon sign, the buzz of human cities where technology thrived and nations stood tall. Beneath that surface, however, tension brewed. We are never shown every detail of how the war began, yet scattered pieces tell a story of rivalry, of weapons of unimaginable power, and of choices made in haste and desperation. The mushroom of its name points us toward nuclear fire, those towering plumes that once defined the very image of annihilation. And though Adventure Time never spells it out in exacting detail, the remnants, the twisted ruin, the wreckage of machines, and the scars upon the earth paint a picture more haunting than any direct account could. What makes this war so compelling in the lore is not just its devastation, but its quiet absence. By the time we meet Finn and Jake, the Mushroom War is long past, its final echoes scattered into half-forgotten ruin. It is never presented as a loud event in the narrative, but as a dreamlike memory buried in the landscape itself. We see broken roads leading nowhere, subway tunnels swallowed by roots, and skeletal skyscrapers leaning toward the horizon like tired guardians of an age long gone. All of this tells us that Ooh was built on the bones of a forgotten world, our world, or at least something very much like it. There is a peculiar calmness in how Adventure Time presents this apocalypse. Unlike stories that scream of end times with violence and despair, here the war feels like something that happened in the far-off past, now softened by distance, its sharp edges blurred by the passing of centuries. Instead of focusing on panic, the show focuses on aftermath, on how life continued, changed, and adapted. It asks us to dream of resilience rather than collapse. Yet within this war lie mysteries that ripple across the entire series. For instance, the war is deeply tied to Simon Petrikov's story, for it was in this age of collapse that he became the Ice King. The Mushroom Cloud did not simply destroy, it fractured the balance of magic and science, letting strange forces seep into the world. Some suggest the war itself was more than just nuclear. It may have torn a hole between dimensions, allowing new energy to flood into reality. Perhaps this is why Ooh feels both post-apocalyptic and magical, its skies filled with both ruins and rainbow. Imagine now the lonely silence that followed the blast. Fields of ash, rivers poisoned, cities left hollow. The last voices of humankind fading into whispers. In this silence, the seeds of Ooh were sown. Radiation gave way to mutation, animals shifting into new forms, sometimes comical, sometimes terrifying. Machines, once built for war, lay dormant, only to awaken centuries later with new, strange purposes. The land itself began to heal in unusual ways, sprouting forests that glowed faintly in twilight, and landscapes that bent the laws of nature. It is as though the world itself, shattered by war, dreamed itself back into being, but differently, strangely, beautifully. The Great Mushroom War is one of the clearest mirrors Adventure Time holds up to our own fears. It reflects our anxieties about nuclear weapons, climate collapse, and the fragility of our modern world. But in the dreamlike rhythm of the show, that despair becomes softened, transformed. Instead of endless darkness, we are shown a rebirth, a reminder that even in ending, new beginnings take root. The ruins of the Mushroom War are scattered like breadcrumbs across Ooh, waiting for those curious enough to notice. One of the most striking pieces lies beneath the Candy Kingdom itself, an abandoned subway station, its tiled walls cracked, its signs half buried in rubble. It is a relic of a time when humans moved through the earth in tunnels of light and noise. For Princess Bubblegum and her people, this underground husk is simply a foundation, something to build upon. But for us, watching quietly, it is a whisper from a forgotten civilization, reminding us that the world of Adventure Time is not purely fantasy, but a dream growing out of real-world ruin. And it isn't only architecture that survived. Weapons, too, lingered. Cold machines slumbered in the shadows of mountains, waiting for centuries before waking once more. Entire vaults of technology lay untouched, locked away until scavengers, or perhaps fate itself, unearthed them. Among these remnants was the Enchiridion, passed from hand to hand, carrying with it the weight of human knowledge. There were laboratories as well, their walls still humming faintly, where experiments had been conducted on life itself. These pieces remind us that the Mushroom War was not just a war of bombs, but of science stretched too far, of humanity attempting to control forces beyond its grasp. The fallout reshaped not only the land, but the very essence of living being. Animals twisted into forms that no longer resembled their ancestors. Some became friendly and whimsical, like the talking animals that fill Ooh's forests. Others grew monstrous, embodiment of fear and decay, hiding in the corners of the world. Humans, the once dominant species, were reduced to scattered survivors, clinging to existence on the margin. Their cities collapsed, their governments dissolved, their voices silent, leaving behind a handful of fragile communities and solitary wanderers. By the time Finn is born, humankind is nearly gone, their legacy hidden in faint echoes, stories, artifacts, and ruin. This fall of humanity is perhaps one of the most haunting elements of the war's legacy. In the quiet tone of the show, it is not shouted at us, but revealed slowly through glimpses. A half-collapsed billboard, a rusted bicycle leaning against a wall of ivy, the skeleton of a subway car buried in moss. Each image speaks softly, reminding us that Ooh is not a land created from nothing, but a tapestry woven over the bones of what came before. It is a meditation on loss, but also on continuity. Life does not vanish completely. It transforms, adapting into new forms, even if the old is left behind. And out of this twilight rose the strange beauty of magic. The boundary between the natural and the supernatural blurred. Perhaps it had always been there, hidden just beyond sight, waiting for the collapse of the old world to reveal itself. Or perhaps the war itself cracked reality open, spilling new energies into the earth. Either way, Ooh became a place where science and sorcery intertwined. Robots roamed alongside wizards, and ancient nuclear bunkers stood next to candy cottages. It is a surreal blend, but it is precisely this blend that makes the world so enchanting. The fall of the old world did not lead to an empty wasteland, but to a dreamscape where imagination replaced order. The Mushroom War lingers in the very air of Ooh, like a lullaby half forgotten. It is the reason Finn is one of the last of his kind, the reason Princess Bubblegum turned to Candy Life as companion, the reason strange beings like the Lich could emerge from the shadows. The war was not just an ending, it was a pivot, a turning of the cosmic wheel that allowed something new to flourish. Adventure Time gently reminds us that endings, even catastrophic, do not silence the world completely. Instead, they reshape it into something different, something we may not yet understand. And so, as we drift deeper into this story, we realize that the Mushroom War is less a single event and more a threshold, a doorway leading from one age into another. Beyond it lies the age of magic, of strange kingdoms and eternal quests. But the war itself remains the hinge, the moment when history bent and the old world surrendered to the new. Among the survivors of the Mushroom War, one story echoes more loudly than the others: the tragedy of Simon Petrikov. Long before he became the Ice King, Simon was a scholar, a man of gentle curiosity and fragile humanity. When the world fell apart around him, he clung desperately to the one object that promised power and protection, the ancient crown. It was no ordinary artifact, and whether it had been born of human science or older magical design, no one could fully say. But in its fractured jewel, Simon saw a glimmer of hope. With the crown, he shielded himself and those he loved from the spreading chaos. Yet, as the ash settled and years stretched onward, the crown took more than it gave. It hollowed his mind, froze his memories, and left him wandering as the broken, childlike figure we know as the Ice King. Simon's transformation is not just the tragedy of a man undone. It is also a symbol of what the Mushroom War did to humanity itself. In trying to survive, people turned to dangerous powers, and those powers reshaped them until their old selves could no longer endure. For Simon, the war was the beginning of his long, lonely spiral, a story that carries forward into every season of Adventure Time. His life became a thread connecting the world before the war to the magical age after it, a reminder that the scars of the old world never fully faded. The war also gave birth to something far darker, the Lich. Some say he was born directly from the blast itself, a being of pure death carried forth by the mushroom cloud. Others imagine he was always there, waiting in the shadows, and the war simply gave him the opening he needed. In either telling, his presence is undeniable. Where the Mushroom War marked the death of humanity, the Lich embodied that death, becoming its walking incarnation. His voice carries the weight of decay, his form radiates ruin, and his very existence is a whisper of the old world's destruction made flesh. Every time he appears in the series, he brings with him the lingering echo of that apocalyptic age. But not every consequence of the war was so bleak. In the cracks left behind, new life blossomed. Princess Bubblegum, sculpted from candy matter, rose to prominence long after the fall of humankind. She did not see herself as human, nor did she need to. She belonged to this new world, a creation of its odd magic and its playful resilience. So too did other kingdoms emerge. The Fire Kingdom, with its searing intensity. The Ice Kingdom, built on Simon's fractured reign, and the Candy Kingdom, which sought to bring stability and joy to a land forever changed. These places are not remnants of the old age, but children of the new, born because of the Mushroom War's ending. Even Finn, though born long after the war, is marked by it. He grows up in a land where humans are nearly extinct, his identity shaped by being one of the last of his kind. This sense of loneliness, of carrying the weight of an entire species, is a direct result of the war's devastation. Yet unlike Simon or the Lich, Finn's story is not defined by despair. Instead, it becomes a testament to hope, the idea that even after humanity has fallen, its spirit can live on in kindness, bravery, and love. As we wander through these histories, it becomes clear that the Mushroom War was not just an event. It was a great turning of the wheel, a collapse that created a foundation for something stranger, softer, and more resilient. In our own world, we fear apocalypse as the end of all things. But in Adventure Time, apocalypse is not the silence of finality. It is the threshold to transformation. The war, terrible as it was, gave rise to the wonder of Its fire burned down the old world, but in the ashes, something unexpectedly tender grew. And so, as the war story continues to unfurl in fragments, through Simon's tragic descent, through the Lich's ominous presence, through the scattered ruins and mutated life, it reminds us of the strange paradox at the heart of Adventure Time. From destruction came renewal, from death came life, from endings came story, and perhaps, in its quiet way, the Mushroom War teaches us the same lesson it taught that even in the deepest shadow, the spark of rebirth waits patiently, ready to bloom. The memory of the Mushroom War drifts through not as a single story, but as a patchwork of fragments. Characters mention it in hushed tones, ruins stand in silence, and artifacts carry its weight without explanation. This scattering of pieces is deliberate. It mirrors how memory itself works, how, over generations, Details fade, leaving behind impressions, myths, and symbols rather than precise accounts. By the time we step into Finn and Jake's adventures, the war has already slipped into legend, its edges blurred by centuries of time. In this way, the Mushroom War feels less like a chapter of history and more like a dream of loss, retold again and again. For the citizens of Ooh, many of whom are not human and carry no direct connection to the old world, the war is not a personal memory but a backdrop, like the outline of mountains on the horizon. To them, the ruins are simply places to explore, the broken weapons merely curiosity. Yet to us, the viewers who recognize these echoes of our own reality, the war feels like a haunting reflection. It is as if Adventure Time invites us to stand in two worlds at once, the whimsical present of O and the quiet ruins of our own potential future. This duality is perhaps what gives the Mushroom War its lingering power. On one level, it explains the world building, why Ooh looks the way it does, why humans are nearly gone, why magic and mutation coexist so freely. But on another, it asks us to reflect on fragility, the fragility of our civilizations, of our invention, of our ability to live in balance with what we create. It is not loud in its warning. It does not preach. Instead, it whispers softly through imagery and absence, leaving space to wonder. And yet, the war is not remembered only through ruins and warnings. It also takes on the shape of myth. The Lich, with his skeletal form and hollow eyes, is more than a villain. He is a personification of the war's deathly shadow, carrying its darkness into every age that followed. In the same way, Simon Petrikov is more than a tragic man. He is the embodiment of survival turned sorrow, the human cost of clinging to dangerous power. These figures are the living memories of the war, transformed into characters that move through Ooh long after the blasts themselves have faded. Even in later adventures, when Finn encounters the remnants of humans or travels to the far-off island colonies, the shadow of the Mushroom War follows. The scattered survivors, fractured and divided, are proof that the war's destruction was total, uprooting not just the land, but an entire species. The human diaspora is one of the most poignant reminders of what was lost, but also of what endured. Though diminished, humanity's spark did not go out completely. It lingered in hidden pockets, waiting for rediscovery, much like the ruins themselves. The war's presence is also seen in how Ooh reshaped itself spiritually. Where once there had been science, logic, and order, there now emerged playfulness, surrealism, and an almost dreamlike quality to existence. Candy people laughed and lived without questioning their origin. Kingdoms of fire and slime thrived, and magic users roamed freely. It is as if the very soul of the world turned away from rigidity and leaned into imagination, seeking comfort such a violent break. In this way, Ooh is not only a land of post-apocalypse, but a land of recovery, a strange, whimsical healing of the Earth's wound. Perhaps that is why the Mushroom War is always shown in fragments, never fully explained. Because in truth, its purpose is not to be understood in detail, but to be felt. To feel the quiet weight of ruins beneath our feet. To hear the echo of silence in a world once filled with human voices. To understand, gently, that the end of one age always carries the seed of another. The Mushroom War is the dark soil in which the dream of Ooh was planted. Without it, there would be no Candy people, no kingdoms of flame or ice, no Finn or Jake to journey across its hills. When the last echoes of the Mushroom War faded into silence, the world did not remain empty for long. Out of the ashes and twisted ruins of the old age, new shapes began to rise, strange, whimsical, and full of color. It is here that we see the beginnings of Ooh's kingdoms, each one blooming like a fantastical flower in a scarred and altered garden. These kingdoms are more than mere territories. They are living reflections of Ooh's spirits, born from magic, mutation, and imagination, each holding a piece of the world's new identity. The first to take root, perhaps the most beloved and central to the story, is the Candy Kingdom. Where once stood the gray ruins of human cities, sugary towers and gumdrop walls rose in their place. Princess Bubblegum, crafted from candy matter itself, became its ruler, but also its mother, scientist, and architect. She did not inherit her people. She created them. From her laboratory, she shaped candy folk of every kind, giving them voices, personalities, and lives. To the outside eye, this might appear playful or even frivolous, yet beneath the surface lies something far deeper. The Candy Kingdom represents resilience, the ability to build sweetness and joy in a world that had once been scorched by fire. It is a kingdom built not on conquest or survival alone, but on the choice to create life anew. Not far from these bright fields, another kingdom emerged in stark contrast, the Ice Kingdom. Born from Simon Petrikov's tragedy, it was not constructed in sweetness but in sorrow. His crown, laden with ancient magic, covered the northern mountains in frost, sculpting glaciers and frozen spires. While the Candy Kingdom laughed and danced, the Ice Kingdom stood still, cold and eternal. Its people, penguins and wandering snow creatures, lived under Simon's fractured guardianship. This kingdom reminds us that not all of Au's new realms were built on hope. Some were monuments to memory and loss, fragments of the old world frozen in place, never fully moving forward. Then there was the Fire Kingdom, deep beneath the crust of Oo, where lava rivers flowed and towers of blackened stone glowed with heat. Unlike the Candy or Ice realms, the Fire Kingdom was not the creation of a single hand, but a lineage, a kingdom forged in intensity and conflict. Its rulers carried the fire crown, a counterpart to the icy one Simon bore. From this kingdom came Flame Princess, whose fiery spirit would one day cross paths with Finn. The Fire Kingdom embodies the raw, destructive energy left smoldering after the war, but also the passion and power that keep Oo alive. In time, more kingdoms sprouted, each one reflecting a different aspect of the strange new world. The Slime Kingdom, with its bubbling lakes and gooey citizens, flourished in playful absurdity. The Sky Kingdom drifted above, home to cloud people who lived with lightness and ease. Even the Nightosphere, ruled by Hunson Abadir, felt like a dark kingdom of its own. Though not of Oo's soil, it still intertwined with its destiny. Each of these realms was like a shard of stained glass, piecing together the mosaic of Oo. But what makes the rise of these kingdoms so dreamlike is the way they coexist. Unlike the rigid nations of humanity's old world, Oo's kingdoms are fluid, whimsical, and often surreal. They do not map neatly onto borders or governments. Instead, they embody moods and elements arising from the very forces of magic and imagination that reshape the land. Where humans once built with concrete and steel, Oo's kingdoms are sculpted from fire, candy, ice, and slime, expressions of a world that values wonder over order. Yet beneath their whimsy lies complexity. Princess Bubblegum rules with kindness, but also with the calculation, her candy creations bound to her will. The Fire Kingdom burns with intensity, but its people know both loyalty and rebellion. The Ice Kingdom glimmers in snow, but its ruler is caught in loneliness and decline. These contrasts remind us that even in a world reborn from apocalypse, power carries both tenderness and burden. The kingdoms of Oo are not merely backdrops. They are living stories, carrying the memory of the war, yet looking forward into something strange and new. And so, as Oo's kingdoms rose, the land began to take on its dreamlike character. The sense that we are drifting in a place shaped as much by imagination as by history. To walk through Oo is to wander through the aftermath of destruction and the bloom of creation at once, a reminder that endings and beginnings are forever entwined. The land of Oo was not born overnight. After the Great Mushroom War left the world in ruins, centuries passed where nature itself was the architect, reshaping valleys, raising mountains, and covering the scars of mankind's weapon. Yet alongside this slow rebirth, survivors and strange new beings began creating community. Some were fragile and fleeting, while others became the foundations of Oo's future kingdom. Among the earliest of these, one stands out immediately, the Candy Kingdom. At first glance, it may seem like nothing more than a whimsical land of sugar and sweets, but its rise is deeply tied to both science and survival. Princess Bubblegum, a being born from what's known as candy elemental matter, was not only the ruler, but also its creator. Using her immense intellect and scientific mastery, she constructed candy citizens to populate her realm. Each one was designed with personality quirks, strengths, and even flaws, making them more than mere constructs. They became a society. The Candy Kingdom thrived because it offered structure and stability in a world that was otherwise uncertain. It wasn't just gumdrop soldiers and peppermint butlers. It was schools, communities, and rules, an echo of the old world civilization, reimagined with a softer, sweeter face. Yet stability did not mean safety. The Candy Kingdom was frequently threatened by both external dangers and internal fragility. Candy people, by nature, were often naive, overly trusting, and physically fragile, making them easy targets. Princess Bubblegum's careful balance of scientific leadership and near-authoritarian control was the only thing that kept them from falling apart. This duality, utopian candy paradise on one side and strict, calculated governance on the other, made the Candy Kingdom one of Oo's most fascinating and enduring powers. Beyond its sugary borders, another kingdom began to rise, the Fire Kingdom. In stark contrast to the playful sweetness of candy life, the Fire Kingdom was forged in intensity, both literally and symbolically. Built around an elemental bloodline tied to the fire elemental herself, this kingdom burned as a reminder of nature's destructive but creative force. Unlike the Candy Kingdom, whose people were built by design, the Fire Kingdom's citizens were born of flame, heat, and raw emotion. Life here was harsh, but it fostered strength, pride, and passion. The rulers of the Fire Kingdom, most notably Flame King and later his daughter, Flame Princess, embodied this duality of destructive power and inner conflict. The Fire Kingdom's politics were volatile, full of betrayals, imprisonment, and struggles over who could wield the mantle of leadership. Yet, despite the chaos, it maintained a place among Oo's great kingdoms because of its sheer strength. To outsiders, the Fire Kingdom often appeared dangerous and unapproachable. But within its fiery walls, it was a society bound together by its element, with tradition, family ties, and even warmth in its own way. Then came the Ice Kingdom, one of Oo's strangest and most tragic realms. Unlike the Fire or Candy Kingdoms, it was not built by an elemental monarch or crafted as a deliberate society. Instead, it was shaped by the loneliness and madness of one man, Simon Petrikov, better known as the Ice King. After donning the crown infused with the powers of the ice elemental, Simon lost his sanity piece by piece until little remained of the man he once was. His kingdom of ice was less a structured society and more a sprawling, frozen wasteland, dominated by his bizarre obsession and his need for companionship. Yet, even the Ice Kingdom played its role in the balance of Oo. It represented the dangerous consequences of unchecked magical power, a living cautionary tale of how one individual tragedy could freeze an entire land. And despite its strange, fractured state, the Ice Kingdom persisted, showing that even madness could hold dominion in a world as strange as Oo. But not every kingdom was rooted in elemental power. Some emerged from mystery, technology, and forgotten history. The Kingdom of Glass, shimmering and fragile, revealed itself only in fragments. The underground societies, hidden away in caverns and ruins, formed their own ways of life in the shadows of Oo's more visible power. And then there was the Nightmare Kingdom, a place rarely spoken of where dream logic twisted reality itself. These lands, though not as dominant as candy, fire, or ice, stitched together the patchwork of Oo's diverse landscape. One kingdom that deserves special mention is the Slime Kingdom, led by Slime Princess. While it might not have seemed as imposing as fire or as grand as candy, the Slime Kingdom embodied adaptability. Its people could reshape themselves, flow into different forms, and recover from nearly any harm. This resilience made them survivors in a way few others could match. Where the Candy Kingdom might crumble under a hard strike, Slime could reform and continue. It was a lesson in persistence, hidden beneath its often goofy exterior. Beyond these elemental kingdoms lay yet another force shaping the destiny of Oo, the Kingdom of the Sky, or more specifically, the Cloud Kingdom. Less centralized than its counterparts, this realm floated above the land, representing freedom and untethered possibility. Its citizens often lived carefree lives, untouched by the conflicts that raged below. The Cloud Kingdom did not hold the same kind of structured power as Bubblegum's Candy Kingdom or the militaristic Fire Kingdom, but it provided a symbolic reminder that Ooh was not all struggle and tragedy. Some beings lived outside the constant cycle of war and survival, choosing instead to embrace lightheartedness and joy. In its own way, the Cloud Kingdom reflected the resilience of happiness amid the weight of Oo's history. Still, for all their charm, these emerging powers often clashed. Borders were uncertain, resources scarce, and old grudges between elemental lineages lingered. The four great elemental lines, candy, fire, ice, and slime, carried echoes of primordial beings whose conflicts shaped the very balance of Ooh. These tensions surfaced time and time again, whether in small disputes or full-scale wars. Princess Bubblegum's scientific order would often clash with Flame Princess' volatile independence. The Ice King's erratic interference disrupted kingdoms that sought peace. Even Slime Prince, underestimated by most, would use her adaptability to gain leverage during disputes. Each kingdom was trying to survive, expand, and secure its place in the new world, and that meant rivalries were inevitable. The beauty of Uh-Oh's kingdoms, however, lay in their diversity. Each kingdom was a microcosm of values, tradition, and elemental energy. Together, they formed a patchwork civilization that mirrored the fractured, reborn nature of the post-war Earth. No single kingdom defined Ooh. Rather, it was the interplay of all these lands, sweetness and fire, madness and resilience, that created a world unlike any other. Take, for example, the balance between technology and nature. Deep in Ooh, the remnants of the old world still pulse, hidden within ruins and machines. The kingdom of the grasslands, though not as explicitly defined as candy or fire, thrived in the remains of human cities. Old highways became fields, skyscrapers collapsed into forests, and the descendants of humanity adapted in surprising ways. Beings like the grass wizard and the grass elemental hinted at a kingdom rooted in Earth's reclamation of humanity's ruin. It wasn't a centralized monarchy, but rather a territory of wandering survivors, farmers, and creatures who lived in the spaces left behind by mankind. This, too, was Ooh, a place where old scars became fertile ground for new life. What made the rise of these kingdoms truly remarkable was how they gave structure to chaos. The Great Mushroom War had shattered the world into fragments of despair, but these kingdoms stitched it back together. Each kingdom served as a cultural anchor, a reminder that survival was not enough. Societies needed identity, history, and connection. The Candy Kingdom embodied comfort and order. The Fire Kingdom embodied raw strength and fury. The Ice Kingdom embodied loss and isolation. The Slime Kingdom embodied flexibility and endurance. Together, they showed that even in a land born from destruction, people, whether candy, flame, ice, or slime, could rebuild. And yet not all kingdoms were destined to last. Some flickered briefly before vanishing into memory. The Mountain Kingdom, where stubborn creatures claimed dominion over rocky peaks, was eventually forgotten, its people scattered across Ooh. The Water Kingdom, once ruled by an eccentric princess, dissolved into the larger seas and oceans that dotted the land. These ephemeral kingdoms remind us that Ooh was always in flux, a world where permanence was rare and change constant. Amid all this, alliances were as important as rivalry. Princess Bubblegum's Candy Kingdom, for instance, often leaned on trade and diplomacy. Peppermint Butler's dealings in the shadows ensured that her kingdom maintained influence beyond its borders. Slime Princess, often allied with others, her kingdom acting as a neutral ground when conflicts grew too heated. Even the Fire Kingdom, for all its fiery pride, engaged in negotiations to avoid total destruction. The balance of power in Ooh was a delicate dance, one where no single kingdom could thrive entirely alone. At the same time, each kingdom carried its myths legends and rulers whose personalities shaped their destiny. Flame Princess struggles with her own destructive nature, mirrored the larger conflict of her people. Princess Bubblegum's intellect and moral ambiguity made the Candy Kingdom both a beacon of progress and a realm of control. The Ice King's madness prevented his land from flourishing in a traditional sense, but his lonely reign still left an undeniable mark on Oo's collective story. And Slime Princess, underestimated by nearly everyone, showed that adaptability could be just as powerful as strength or brilliance. In many ways, the kingdoms were more than territory. They were living characters in Oo's grand narrative. Each rise and fall reflected the ongoing struggle to define what civilization meant in a post-apocalyptic world. Were kingdoms meant to protect their people or to expand their influence? Were rulers meant to embody their element or to transcend it? These questions hung over Oo's history, shaping not just the politics of the land, but also the personal journeys of its heroes and villains as the kingdoms grew and settled into their identity. The land of Oo began to resemble a patchwork quilt stitched together from fragments of the past and threads of the present. What once was a wasteland dotted with ruins became a vibrant, if unstable, landscape of colorful territory, each brimming with stories, traditions, and rulers who carved their own paths. And though the scars of the Great Mushroom War never faded, these kingdoms proved that life had not only survived, but flourished. Yet the very success of these kingdoms carried a hidden cost. The more they grew, the more they defined themselves through division. Borders became sharper, walls taller, and armies more necessary. The Candy Kingdom, with its sweet facade, built elaborate defenses and experimented with dangerous science to ward off invasion. The Fire Kingdom, proud and unyielding, smoldered with suspicion, forever wary of betrayal. The Ice Kingdom froze inward, cutting itself off from the wider world. Even the adaptable Slime Kingdom, despite its openness, developed its own insular habits, preferring the comfort of its sticky courts to the uncertainties beyond. Oo was no longer a formless wilderness. It was a land of powers, each standing apart, yet always brushing against one another. The fragile unity of survival had given way to the complexities of politics, pride, and ambition. And just as in the old world, such tensions often sowed seeds of conflict. Still, the kingdoms also nurtured wonder. Festivals filled the Candy Kingdom streets, where sweets danced beneath glowing lanterns. In the Fire Kingdom, lava flows illuminated the night like rivers of flame, while citizens celebrated their volcanic heritage. The Ice Kingdom, cold and desolate, was sometimes touched by moments of beauty, frozen auroras glimmering over peaks of ice, painting the sky with soft light. Even the Slime Kingdom, with its squelching corridors, carried its own charm as laughter and eccentricity thrived in its gooey courts. These small moments of joy reminded the people of Oo that kingdoms were not only about power, but also about life, culture, and shared identity. At the heart of this rise was a question that lingered quietly, like a whisper beneath the surface. Were these kingdoms building a better future, or simply repeating the mistakes of the past? Princess Bubblegum's reliance on surveillance and control mirrored the authoritarian tendency of the old world. Flame Princess struggles with her temper reflected the destructive cycles of war and vengeance. Even Ice King, in his loneliness, carried echoes of humanity's inability to let go of the past. Oo was a world born anew, but in its kingdom, the ghosts of the old world's flaws still linger. Yet perhaps that is what made Oo so compelling, a land both fragile and resilient, fractured yet whole. Its kingdoms told stories of loss and renewal, of rulers who tried and failed, and of subjects who built lives in the shadow of apocalypse. In the Candy Kingdom, families found joy in simplicity, celebrating a life of sweetness even under constant threat. In the Fire Kingdom, people embraced the heat of passion, crafting songs and traditions that reflected both the danger and beauty of flame. In the Ice Kingdom, solitude gave way to strange forms of companionship, where penguins and creatures huddled together against the cold. And in the Slime Kingdom, chaos became community, showing that even disorder could nurture belonging. The rise of these kingdoms was not just political, It was emotional, cultural, and deeply human, even when the people themselves were candy or flame or slime. It was a testament to the fact that no matter how broken a world becomes, its inhabitants will seek to rebuild, to gather together, and to imagine something greater than survival. And so the kingdoms of stood as fragile pillars against the tides of chaos. Their foundations were imperfect, their rulers flawed, their futures uncertain. But they endured, and in enduring, they carved out a civilization where once there had been only ruin. This chapter of Oo's history is not merely about the structures of candy, ice, fire, or slime. It is about the will to create meaning from desolation. As we look across this strange and wondrous land, we see not just kingdoms, but stories of rulers who struggled with the weight of power, stories of citizens who made homes in impossible places, stories of joy, sorrow, rivalry, and peace woven into the fabric of Each kingdom was a dream given form, fragile yet luminous, standing as both a legacy of the past and a hope for the future. The kingdoms of remind us that even in the wake of unimaginable destruction, life finds a way not only to survive, but to thrive in surprising, enchanting forms. They were the heartbeats of a world reborn, shaping the adventures yet to come. And in their rise, we glimpse the promise and peril of Oo's unfolding destiny. With the kingdoms of rising and shaping the new world, there remained one piece missing from the puzzle, the hero. For all the power of princesses and the vastness of kingdom, Oo's story could not be told without the wanderer, those who moved between realms, unbound by wall and throne. And in this age of rebuilding, no wanderers shone brighter than Finn the human and Jake the dog. Their tale begins not in grandeur, but in something far more humble. Two companions, one human, one magical, making their home in a simple treehouse. From the small dwelling, they would venture out into the wide, strange world of bringing with them a spirit of adventure that defined an entire era. For Finn, the story was always more than just adventure. As the last known human, for much of his youth, he carried the weight of mystery within him. Where had his people gone? Why had the world fallen into ruin? His very existence was a living reminder of the world that came before, and yet he was also proof of the new world's resilience. Finn was both legacy and hope, a boy shaped not by the past he had never seen, but by the future determined to create. Jake, on the other hand, was the warmth to balance Finn's fiery spirit. With his shape-shifting powers, he could bend and stretch in impossible ways, but his true gift lay in his easygoing heart. Jake represented comfort, home, and laughter, the steady presence that kept Finn from being consumed by the burdens of heroism. Together, they were a perfect balance. Finn's restless drive for justice and Jake's calm wisdom woven into every adventure they shared. When Finn and Jake wandered into the lands of they did more than fight monsters or rescue princesses. They became the living bridge between kingdom, between solitude and community, between the scars of the past and the dreams of the future. Their adventures carried them through the Candy Kingdom, where Finn's bravery earned him Princess Bubblegum's trust. They clashed with the Fire Kingdom, where Jake's level head often tempered Finn's fiery impulse. They crossed icy wastelands tangled with villains and befriended beings from every corner of Each step stitched them deeper into the fabric of the land's story. But the beauty of Finn and Jake's journey is that it was not solely about grand quests. Some of their greatest moments were small, quiet evenings in their treehouse, playful games beneath the stars, or simple kindnesses shown to strangers. In those tender spaces, the heart of the age of adventure revealed itself. It wasn't always about defeating evil. It was about living, about finding joy in companionship, about daring to keep walking forward no matter how uncertain the path. The age of adventure was also marked by their curiosity. Finn, with his restless need to explore, would often stumble upon ruins of the old world, crumbling structure and forgotten machines. These ruins spoke of humanity's downfall, and though Finn did not always understand them, he carried the unspoken desire to honor the people who had come before him. Jake, meanwhile, brought perspective to these discoveries, reminding Finn that While the past held lessons, the present held life worth living. Together they embodied Oo's balance, remembering but not being trapped by what had been, hoping without losing sight of the now. Of course, their path was not without challenges. Villains rose and fell in their wake. The Ice King with his desperate loneliness, the Lich with his suffocating hunger for destruction, and countless others who tested Finn and Jake's bond. Each trial revealed something deeper about who they were. Finn's courage was not only about swinging a sword. It was about facing heartbreak, learning to let go and continuing on even when the answers he sought remained hidden. Jake's wisdom was not only about offering comfort. It was about knowing when to fight, when to laugh, and when to guide Finn back from the brink of despair. In this way, their companionship was not just the heart of their adventure, but the heart of Oo itself. Their journeys showed that amid kingdoms and wars, what truly defined this new age was not conquest or power, but connection. And for those who lived in Oo, whether candy, slime, flame, or ice, Finn and Jake were not only heroes, they were a promise that, in this fragile, reborn world, kindness and bravery could endure. As Finn and Jake traveled across Oo, the land itself seemed to respond to their presence. Villages looked to them for protection, rulers sought their aid, and even wandering spirits recognized something unique in these two companions. They were not bound by the responsibilities of thrones or crowns, yet their actions carried weight that rivaled any king or princess. In many ways, they embodied what the kingdom could not: freedom. The freedom to move from place to place, to choose kindness even when the world demanded violence, to laugh in the face of ruin, and to make friends with those others might call monsters. This freedom was not without its shadows. Finn's heart, in particular, was tested time and again. His youthful optimism often clashed with the harsh realities of Oo. He longed for love and connection, but those desires often left him wounded. His bond with the Princess Bubblegum, for instance, was a tender thread that tied him to the Candy Kingdom. Yet it carried with it a painful reminder of the distance between them. She was older, burdened with the responsibilities of her realm, while Finn was still finding his place in the world. Their relationship was a dance of admiration and unfulfilled longing, a quiet ache that shaped Finn's journey from boyhood to manhood. Jake's presence softened these wounds. As an older brother figure, and sometimes even a fatherly presence, he guided Finn through heartbreak and disappointment. His wisdom was not always grand or polished, but it was grounded in love. When Finn's spirit burned too brightly and risked consuming itself, Jake was there to cool the flame. When Finn stumbled, Jake stretched out, sometimes literally, to lift him back up. Together they revealed the profound truth that heroism is not born of solitude, but of companionship. Their adventures also highlighted the shifting nature of heroism itself. In the early days, their quests often mirrored the old tale: rescuing princesses, slaying beasts, and discovering hidden treasure. But as time went on, the challenges grew more complex. Rescuing someone was not always the answer. Some villains turned out to be lonely souls. Some battles were not fought with swords, but with patience, forgiveness, or simply the willingness to listen. This was the heart of the Age of Adventure, a reimagining of what it meant to be a hero in a world still healing from catastrophe. Finn, in particular, grew into this role. His humanity, rare and precious in Oo, gave him a perspective unlike any other. He was not bound to an element, not born of candy or flame or slime. His mortality reminded those around him of fragility, and yet his determination showed them the strength fragility could hold. He was proof that even in a world reshaped by magic, the spirit of humanity could endure and inspire. Jake's magical nature, on the other hand, showed how the strange and the ordinary could coexist. He was both extraordinary and down to earth, wielding powers beyond comprehension, while still caring most deeply about simple pleasure: music, food, naps, and time with family. His balance was essential, for it reminded Finn, and by extension, Oo, that even in times of great conflict, life was meant to be lived and savored. Together they wandered not only the lands, but also the hearts of those they encountered. They befriended Marceline, the vampire queen, who carried centuries of sorrow yet found joy in their companionship. They faced the wrath of the Fire Kingdom and discovered that even flames could be soothed with understanding. They comforted the Ice King, whose madness masked a lonely soul, and in doing so revealed that even a so-called villain was worthy of empathy. The Age of Adventure was not about building kingdom or conquering land. It was about journeys, long walks beneath starlit skies, daring plunges into forgotten ruins, and encounters that left both laughter and scars. Finn and Jake's story was not written on thrones or in royal halls, but in the quiet bonds of friendship, the choices to forgive, and the courage to keep moving forward. And as Ooh watched them wander, the land began to change. Their presence inspired others to take up their own small adventures, to believe that one did not need armies or crowns to shape the world. In the echoes of their footsteps, Ooh found hope. There was also something timeless in the rhythm of their days. Morning light streaming into the treehouse, with Jake stretching lazily across the room and Finn bounding out of bed, eager for whatever quests awaited. Afternoons filled with exploration, some grand, like defeating an ancient foe, and some small, like helping a villager mend a broken roof. Evenings often ended in laughter, music, or quiet reflection beneath the stars. These simple patterns made their adventures feel less like interruptions and more like the natural heartbeat of Ooh itself. Yet not all of their journeys were lighthearted. The weight of Ooh's mysteries pressed down on them, and often, Finn in particular could not ignore them. He longed to understand the Lich, a being of pure destruction, whose shadow stretched far across history. He wondered about humanity's disappearance, about whether he truly was alone as the last of his kind. Questions of destiny haunted him, especially when prophecies or cosmic forces hinted that his life carried meaning beyond his own choosing. These were heavy burdens for a boy to bear. And yet, every time Finn teetered on the edge of despair, Jake reminded him that destiny is not a chain but a choice. Jake believed that life's meaning was not found in fate or prophecy, but in the small joys that made the present worth living. A hot slice of bacon pancakes, a lazy nap in the sun, a song shared with friends. These were just as important as saving kingdom. This contrast between Finn's restless need for purpose and Jake's steady embrace of the now created a harmony that shaped their story. In the wider land, their reputation grew. Some saw them as protectors, while others viewed them as meddlers. To the citizens of the Candy Kingdom, they were loyal friends and defenders, standing at Princess Bubblegum's side when danger loomed. To the Ice King, they were both enemies and companions, foes who resisted his schemes, but also the only ones who treated him with something resembling kindness. Even in the darkest corners of Ooh, their names carried weight, for heroes are rare in a world so fractured. Their journeys also stretched beyond Ooh itself into realms of dreams, alternate dimensions, and cosmic landscapes where time and reality unravel. These ventures revealed just how small and fragile even the bravest adventurer could feel. Yet instead of shrinking from the vastness of existence, Finn and Jake leaned into it with curiosity. Where others saw fear, they saw mystery. Where others saw chaos, they saw possibility. It was this spirit, the refusal to cower before the unknown, that defined the Age of Adventure more than any single battle ever could. Finn's growth was the most visible. He transformed from a boy chasing excitement into a young man who understood the gravity of his choices. He experienced heartbreak, loss, and the sting of failure, yet each wound only deepened his resolve. His humanity was not in his strength or his sword, but in his vulnerability. Ooh did not need a perfect hero, it needed a human one. And Finn, flawed yet steadfast, became exactly that. Jake's growth, though subtler, was no less important. His carefree nature sometimes hid the wisdom of experience, for he too carried his own history and burden. As Finn grew older, Jake became more reflective, offering not only playful banter, but also deep insights about family, responsibility, and mortality. Their bond matured alongside them, shifting from the simplicity of youthful adventures to the layered companionship of brothers facing life's changes together. Even their failure held meaning. There were times they could not save everyone, times they stumbled, times they disagreed. Yet it was in these moments that their story shone brightest. for they always found their way back to one another. Oo itself seemed to recognize this resilience. Just as the land had been reborn after a catastrophe, so too did Finn and Jake continually rise after each trial, carrying forward the spark of hope that made them heroes. What made their adventures resonate so deeply was not only what they accomplished, but how they lived. They did not seek to rule or to conquer. Their victories were not measured in land gained or enemies destroyed, but in friendships forged, in lessons learned, and in the laughter that echoed even after battles ended. They reminded the people of Oo that heroism was not distant or unattainable. It was found in the simple courage of caring, of showing up, of standing by those who needed them. This was the age of adventure, defined not by castles or crowns, but by two wanderers whose love for life made the impossible seem possible. Finn and Jake carried no banners, wore no royal robes, and commanded no armies, yet they shaped Oo as surely as any kingdom. They were living proof that in a world scarred by war, it was not power or magic that mattered most, but the bonds between friends, the choices to protect, and the will to keep exploring no matter what lay beyond the horizon. Finn and Jake's adventures often highlighted the balance between action and quiet reflection. For every epic battle against the Lich or chase through haunted forests, there were also stories of the two simply enjoying pancakes, playing music, or lying in the grass and looking at the clouds. These smaller, intimate moments are what gave the Age of Adventure its heart. It was not simply about saving kingdoms, but about finding joy in the ordinary and beauty in the bizarre. During this era, Finn especially began to grow beyond his role as just a hero. He was confronted with challenges that tested his understanding of morality and compassion. His encounters with Flame Princess, for example, showed him that relationships could be complex, fiery, and sometimes painful. His interactions with Marceline revealed the importance of empathy and listening, as he saw firsthand how even the strongest figures carried scars of loneliness. Every journey, every friendship, every heartbreak shaped him, slowly carving him into something more than a boy with a sword. He was becoming a bridge between the old world and the new. Jake, in his own way, represented freedom. His magical abilities meant he could stretch into anything, but his heart was rooted in family and simplicity. He wasn't searching for destiny the way Finn was, but rather living each day as it came. His relationship with Lady Rainicorn brought another layer to his story, grounding him in love and giving him responsibilities that even a magical dog couldn't stretch away from. Together, Finn and Jake balanced one another, one driven by purpose, the other by joy, yet both bound by loyalty. The Age of Adventure also reshaped Oo itself. By traveling across mountains, forests, and wastelands, Finn and Jake made connections that bound the world together. Their kindness and courage rippled outward, affecting everyone they met. They weren't rulers or gods, but they became symbols of possibility, showing that bravery and kindness could matter as much as ancient power. Even their enemies played a role in shaping this age. The Ice King, once feared, became more of a companion than a threat. Through Finn and Jake's patience, he revealed layers of vulnerability and loneliness, reminding everyone that villains were often broken people in need of connection. The Lich, in contrast, remained the embodiment of death and decay, a reminder that not every darkness could be softened, and some battles were eternal. Facing both sides of the spectrum, tragedy and terror helped Finn and Jake mature, teaching them that the world was not black and white, but a mosaic of stories, scars, and second chances. As time went on, the Age of Adventure became less about seeking glory and more about finding meaning. The bond between Finn and Jake was the anchor of this journey. Through laughter, loss, and endless wandering, they showed that home wasn't a single place, but a person, a connection that made the world feel less lonely. The Age of Adventure, then, was not just a period of quests and battles. It was a story of two wanderers who stitched together the broken pieces of Oo with love, curiosity, and the courage to keep moving forward, no matter what awaited them at the horizon. Even as kingdoms rose and heroes wandered across Oo, there existed a layer of reality far beyond swords, crowns, and even the fiercest adventure. This was the domain of cosmic forces, of entities whose presence shaped the very fabric of existence, often in ways unseen yet profoundly felt. To truly understand the history of we must step quietly into this hidden realm, a place where stars whisper secrets, dimensions fold upon themselves, and the boundaries between life, magic, and time become fluid. At the center of these mysteries is Prismo, the Wishmaster, residing in his dimension of time, a realm both infinite and intimate. Prismo embodies the paradoxes of the multiverse. Though he appears calm, almost languid, his influence is vast. Wishes granted to mortals can ripple across worlds, creating changes that alter history itself. And yet, despite his omnipotence, Prismo is bound by rules beyond his control. His existence reminds us that even cosmic forces are not entirely free. They are part of a greater system, a web of cause and effect, stretching across dimensions. For this means that what seems like chance or coincidence often carries the echo of something much larger. Alongside Prismo are other enigmatic figures, such as Grob Gob Glob Grod, whose four-headed form watches over aspects of creation and balance. Each head represents a perspective, a consciousness tasked with maintaining cosmic equilibrium. When they intervene in it is rarely for spectacle. Their actions are subtle, careful, almost meditative, reflecting an understanding that every small shift can cascade into monumental change. These beings demonstrate that is not merely a patchwork of kingdoms and heroes, but part of a multiverse alive with energy, rules, and unseen observers. The Nightosphere, ruled by Hunson Abadir, adds another layer to this cosmic tapestry. Though often cast as villainous, the Nightosphere functions as a realm of order within chaos, a domain where souls and energies are structured differently than in Its prince, Marceline, straddles both worlds, connected to by her history and yet tied to the Nightosphere by her very essence. Through her, we glimpse how the boundaries between realms are porous, allowing experiences, emotions, and power to flow across planes. Is not isolated. It exists in dialogue with realms that challenge our understanding of reality. Time itself is fluid in this context. Finn, Jake, and the kingdoms of operate within a linear frame. Yet the multiverse reveals that their stories are interwoven with loops, echoes, and alternate timelines. We catch glimpses of possible futures, fractured realities, and the lingering shadows of events that might have been. The cosmic owl, silent and watchful, appears in dreams to hint at these connections. Its presence is subtle, almost hypnotic, yet deeply influential. To fall asleep under its gaze is to understand that history is not just chronological. It is layered, folded, and repeated across dimensions. Then there is the enigmatic Lich, whose very essence represents an antithesis to creation, where Prismo, Grob Gob, Glob Grod, and even Hunson Abadir maintain balance. The Lich embodies entropy. His actions ripple across worlds, showing that cosmic forces are not always benevolent. He is a reminder that destruction, much like creation, has its place in the grand tapestry. His influence extends beyond hinting at universes where the same threads of chaos could unravel. To confront him is not only a challenge of strength, but also a meditation on the fragility of life and the persistence of evil. Magic, too, functions differently at a scale. Spells that seem simple in can interact with cosmic energy in unpredictable ways. The Ice Crown, for instance, is not merely a tool of dominion. It is a conduit for forces beyond comprehension, capable of reshaping time and sanity itself. Artifacts scattered across the land carry remnants of ancient, multiversal knowledge left behind by beings whose motives are unknowable. Each discovery by Finn and Jake hints at layers of reality that are grander and stranger than the surface adventures suggest. The multiverse also introduces strange echoes of itself. Alternate versions of familiar characters exist in parallel realms, showing paths not taken and choices unmade. In some realities, Finn never found Jake. In others, the kingdoms fell to darkness. These possibilities are quiet reminders that current history is fragile, contingent upon countless unseen variables. It is a story that could be rewritten at any moment, shaped by the interplay of cosmic forces, the decisions of heroes, and the whims of time. Amid these vast mysteries, Ooh itself continues to pulse with life. Kingdoms grow, heroes wander, and yet beneath it all lies the subtle hum of a multiverse in motion. Stars drift in their orbits, energies shift between dimensions, and whispers of the past and future intertwine in ways that few mortals can perceive. It is a gentle but persistent presence, reminding all who dwell in Ooh that they are part of something larger, a story that stretches beyond walls, mountains, and even the limits of imagination. Among these cosmic influences, dreams themselves hold extraordinary power. Finn and Jake often encounter visions that are more than mere figment of imagination. Through the guidance of the cosmic owl, through ethereal beings like Prismo, and even in the shifting landscapes of the nightosphere, dreams become bridges between dimensions. They hint at futures, reveal hidden truths, and sometimes warn of dangers yet unseen. In Ooh, sleep is not simply rest. It is a portal to understanding, a quiet moment where the cosmos whispers secrets to those willing to listen. This connection between the ordinary and the cosmic is what gives Ooh its depth. While a hero might fight a monster or rescue a princess in one moment, in the next, they might glimpse the vast interweaving of dimensions, the weight of universes unseen. Finn's courage and Jake's adaptability allow them to navigate these layers, yet even they are humbled by the scale of existence. It is in these encounters that the age of adventure truly intersects with the multiverse, showing that heroism is not just a matter of action, but of perception and understanding. Magic, while abundant in Ooh, is only one thread in this cosmic web. Time flows differently across realms, sometimes looping, sometimes fracturing. The interactions between dimensions can create paradox, moments where past and future overlap, or where one decision alters countless realities. Finn, Jake, and their allies rarely see the full scope of these effects, but the subtle ripples influence events in ways that are only revealed gradually. A small choice in one kingdom might resonate through space and time, creating unforeseen consequences across multiple planes. Even familiar villains are connected to these cosmic currents. The Ice King's madness example can be traced not only to the crown's magic, but also to the broader interplay of energy across realms. The Lich's destruction resonates beyond Ooh, threatening not just the physical world, but the very fabric of reality itself. Each confrontation is therefore not merely a battle, but a negotiation with forces that transcend comprehension. Victory or failure carries implications far beyond the immediate moment. Interestingly, some of Ooh's most mundane characters also carry multiversal significance. Beings who seem minor or ordinary can hold the key to maintaining balance. Their actions, often unnoticed by others, interact with cosmic forces in subtle yet profound ways. This underlines a recurring theme. In a multiverse, significance is not always measured by power or prominence. Sometimes it lies in quiet perseverance, small acts of kindness, or the courage to keep moving forward, even when the world feels incomprehensible. Artifacts and relics scattered across Ooh further connect the land to its cosmic context. Ancient machinery, magical crowns, enchanted swords, and forgotten temples all carry traces of energies from beyond. When Finn and Jake stumble upon these objects, they are not just solving puzzles or completing quests. They are engaging with echoes of the multiverse. Each discovery illuminates a fragment of reality, revealing the interplay between Ooh's history and the broader cosmos. The very geography of Ooh seems shaped by these cosmic currents. Mountains rise where energy gathers, forests grow around sites of temporal distortion, and lakes shimmer with reflective power that hints at alternate worlds. Even the sky, with their shifting auroras and strange constellations, appear to respond to multiversal forces. Ooh is alive, not only in the conventional sense, but also in a deeper, more mysterious way, a living intersection of space, time, and possibility. Through all of this, the heroes' journeys take on a reflective quality. Their adventures are both literal and symbolic, mapping not just the land, but the structure of reality itself. Finn's bravery and Jake's wisdom act as guides, helping the inhabitants of Oo navigate not just monsters and politics, but the unseen architecture of existence. Their actions ripple outward, shaping outcomes in ways even they cannot predict, weaving threads that connect kingdoms, dimensions, and timelines. In the age of adventure, Oo was more than a collection of kingdoms and wanderers. It was a living network of energy and meaning, a place where the boundaries between worlds were porous, and the smallest choices carried the weight of cosmic consequences. It was a reminder that every story, no matter how personal, exists within a grander pattern. Every hero, every villain, every quiet moment of kindness or sorrow is a note in the symphony of the multiverse. The influence of these cosmic forces is not always direct or dramatic. Often it is quiet, subtle, and almost imperceptible. A gentle shift in the wind, a star that glimmers longer than usual, or a sudden premonition, a dream, can carry significance across dimensions. Finn and Jake, despite their heroism and bravery, are still part of this grand rhythm. Their actions resonate not just within the physical boundaries of Oo, but across realms that many will never see or comprehend. The universe has a way of reminding them and us that even in a world of magic and monsters, every choice matters. Prismo's wishes are a particularly striking example of this subtlety. A single wish can set off ripples through time and space, sometimes for good, sometimes with unforeseen consequences. Finn and Jake have witnessed this firsthand, seeing reality twist in response to desires both noble and flawed. It's a reminder that power, even in the hands of those with the purest intention, must be approached with care. Every decision, every hope, every whispered desire interacts with the multiverse in ways that can never be fully anticipated. The Lich, by contrast, represents the other side of this cosmic spectrum. Where Prismo preserves balance, the Lich embodies entropy, decay, and the inevitability of ending. His presence is a shadow over Oo, a reminder that not all forces in the universe are benevolent. Yet even in his darkness, the structure of the multiverse provides limits and checks. The Lich may threaten, may destroy, and may terrorize, but he is never free from the broader order of existence. His malevolence contained, yet his potential serves as a constant warning. The cosmos is vast, beautiful, and fragile, and vigilance is always necessary. Time itself behaves differently under these cosmic influences. Past, present, and future are not always linear, and Oo's inhabitants occasionally experience glimpses of what could be or what might have been. These temporal anomalies are often subtle, visions in dreams, echoes in ancient ruins, or inexplicable coincidences. But they hint at a universe that is alive, self-aware, and infinitely complex. The age of adventure exists within this context, a fleeting moment in an eternal and intricate dance of cause and effect. Multiverse mysteries also manifest in the alternate versions of familiar characters. We catch glimpses of Finns and Jakes who never met, kingdoms that fell differently, or worlds where the Lich prevailed. These echoes are more than what-if scenarios. They are living proof that Oo's history is contingent, fragile, and profoundly interconnected. They remind us that the story we witness is one of many possibilities, and that each choice has far-reaching consequences, often beyond comprehension. Even Oo's most ordinary landscapes can carry cosmic significance. Rivers may flow along hidden ley lines, forests may conceal portals, and mountains can act as anchors between dimensions. Creatures that seem mundane, birds, fish, or even small magical animals, can serve as conduits or guardians of cosmic energy. The world itself becomes a living map of interdimensional forces, a landscape of mystery waiting to be explored by those willing to notice its hidden rhythm. In the midst of this, Finn and Jake continue their wandering. Their journeys are not always about defeating foes or saving kingdoms. They are about navigating the delicate threads of a universe that is alive in ways beyond mortal comprehension. Each encounter, each friendship, each challenge interacts with the multiverse in subtle ways, gradually shaping the fate of Oo and the worlds beyond. Even laughter, compassion, and moments of quiet reflection carry weight in this intricate web of existence. The cosmic forces of Oo are both awe-inspiring and comforting. They remind us of the immensity of the universe, yet they also show that even small actions matter. Finn's bravery, Jake's loyalty, Princess Bubblegum's intellect, and Marceline's resilience all resonate beyond their immediate surroundings, touching unseen realms, shaping reality, and contributing to the grand story of existence. Oo is more than a land of kingdoms and heroes. It is a nexus of possibilities, a living testament to the interplay between life, magic, and the infinite. As we drift gently into the deeper mysteries of Oo, it becomes clear that understanding these cosmic forces is not about mastery. It is about noticing, appreciating, and moving within their currents with care and curiosity. Finn and Jake's adventures teach us that heroism is not just action. It is awareness, empathy, and the quiet courage to navigate a universe infinitely vast, endlessly mysterious, and deeply alive. As the age of adventure unfolded, Oo became a place where the boundaries between the ordinary and the extraordinary were constantly shifting. Heroes like Finn and Jake move through landscapes shaped not only by kingdom or monsters, but by forces far older and larger than they could fully grasp. Mountains, rivers, and forests were not merely landforms. They were echoes of cosmic events, conduits of energy, and reminders that the world was alive in ways that could not be contained by simple maps or history. Even the simplest moments carried significance. A quiet stroll through the Candy Kingdom at dawn, a conversation by a river, or a shared laugh beneath the stars could ripple through time and space. The multiverse, in its subtle and pervasive way, seemed to reward attention, empathy, and courage. Finn and Jake's journey was a living proof that heroism was measured not just in feats of strength, but in the mindful navigation of a world where everything, no matter how small, had weight. The cosmic entities of Oo were never far removed from daily life. Prismo's dimension and the nightosphere existed alongside the kingdom, intersecting in moments both extraordinary and intimate. Finn and Jake often found themselves entangled in events that seemed improbable, yet carried profound consequences. A single wish, a chance encounter, or a decision made in compassion could reverberate across realms. These interactions remind us that Oo is a tapestry woven not only from the choices of its heroes, but from the unseen hands of cosmic forces guiding, shaping, and sometimes challenging the flow of events. The multiverse also introduced the notion of fragility. Every timeline, every world, is contingent, delicate, and interconnected. The Licha, as a force of entropy, exemplified the consequences of imbalance. When his destructive energy spreads, it threatens not just the physical world, but the very architecture of reality. Yet even in the face of such existential peril, the multiverse has its checks: Prismo's rule, Grob-Gob, Glob-Grod's balance, and the subtle laws that govern cosmic interaction. They remind us that even in chaos there is structure, and that the universe is alive with both peril and protection. Alternate realities provide glimpses of what could have been, offering quiet reflection on choices, growth, and consequence. Finn's and Jake's who never met, kingdoms that crumbled differently, or realms dominated by darkness remind us that the Oo we know is fragile, contingent upon countless decisions and the careful threading of destiny. These glimpses are gentle warnings as much as they are curiosity, emphasizing the preciousness of each moment and each choice. Magic itself, interwoven with cosmic energy, behaves unpredictably across realms. The Ice Crown, the Enchiridion, and other ancient artifacts are conduits for forces beyond immediate comprehension. When Finn, Jake, and their friends engage with these objects, they are not merely wielding tools. They are interacting with threads of reality, with echoes of creation and destruction. Their adventures become both literal and metaphysical journeys, revealing the depth of Oo's connection to the wider cosmos. Yet despite the immensity of these forces, Oo retains its intimate, almost tender quality. The land, its inhabitants, and its heroes exist in a delicate balance between grandeur and intimacy. A conversation in a treehouse, a quiet walk across a frost-covered plain, or a song shared by a campfire all hold resonance. Even the smallest acts, kindness to a stranger, compassion for a lonely soul, bravery in a moment of fear, have multiversal significance. The universe responds not only to deeds of power, but to those of heart. This segment of O's history, marked by cosmic forces and multiversal mysteries, emphasizes the coexistence of vastness and intimacy, chaos and structure, action and reflection. Finn and Jake navigate this world with courage, curiosity, and compassion, showing that heroism is not defined solely by feats, but by the awareness of one's place in the grand design. They teach us that even in a reality shaped by forces beyond comprehension, every choice and every gesture, every act of empathy carries meaning. The age of adventure, when viewed through the lens of the multiverse, becomes not just a time of wandering and quest, but a meditation on existence itself. The kingdoms, the heroes, the villains, and the cosmic entities all intertwine, creating a rich, layered story of life, magic, and possibility. And in this quiet, reflective understanding, we realize that Oo is more than a world. It is a living nexus, a space where hope, courage, and love resonate across time and dimensions, reminding all who wander within it that even the smallest heart can shape the cosmos. As we drift deeper into tonight's tale, it's time to explore the final chapter of our journey through the complete history of Adventure Time. A chapter about change, about the quiet turning of the world, and about how even the endings of one story can give rise to the beginnings of another. Tonight, we will wander through the transformations that reshaped Oo, witness the conclusions of great arcs, and reflect on the gentle unfolding of time itself. Transformation is perhaps the most pervasive theme in Oo's history. The land itself is always in flux. Mountains crumble, forests grow, and rivers carve new paths through the earth. But the most profound transformations are not always visible. They happen within hearts and minds, in the quiet moments when a hero realizes the weight of responsibility, when a ruler rethinks the meaning of power, or when a friend learns to forgive a foe. Finn, Jake, Marceline, Princess Bubblegum, and even the Ice King are all shaped by such internal evolution, moving forward even as the world around them shifts. Finn's journey is a testament to this quiet metamorphosis. From a boy chasing adventure for the thrill of it, he grows into someone who understands the complexities of love, loss, and morality. He learns that heroism is not merely about vanquishing foes or saving kingdom, but about recognizing the ripples his actions create, being mindful of the lives he touches, and embracing the vulnerability that comes with caring deeply. Each choice he makes, no matter how small, contributes to the subtle shaping of Oo, a reminder that growth is a process measured in moments rather than milestones. Jake, too, evolves in ways that are gentle, yet profound. While he begins as a playful, carefree companion, his role gradually deepens as he balances his personal desires with the needs of those around him. He discovers new layers of responsibility, particularly in his relationship with Lady Rainicorn and their children. Through him, we see that transformation is not always dramatic. It can be soft, woven into the fabric of everyday life, felt in laughter shared under the sun, or in quiet words spoken at night. Jake's journey reminds us that growth is not just about extraordinary feats, but about the constant alignment of heart, mind, and action. The kingdoms themselves also undergo transformation. The Candy Kingdom, once a place of rigid order, learns flexibility and empathy under Princess Bubblegum's guidance. The Fire Kingdom, with its volatile energy, discovers balance and the possibility of diplomacy. The Ice Kingdom's isolation slowly gives way to connection as the Ice King's story unfolds, revealing a lonely soul beneath his chaotic exterior. Each realm reflects a subtle truth, that endings are rarely abrupt and beginnings are rarely absolute. The world moves in cycles, in patterns that echo across time, always reshaping itself while retaining traces of what came before. Even Oo's landscapes tell stories of transformation. Once barren lands bloom with magic. Old ruins are repurposed as places of learning or reflection. And cosmic phenomena, auroras, shifting stars, and dimensional folds serve as reminders that the universe is alive, responsive, and ever-changing. These shifts are not always immediately understood by its inhabitants, yet their effects ripple outward, shaping events, relationships, and histories in ways that may take years or even lifetimes to fully recognize. Endings in O are rarely sudden. They unfold gently, often overlapping with beginnings in a way that feels natural and inevitable. Adventures conclude not with fanfare, but with the quiet satisfaction of lessons learned, bonds strengthened, and stories remembered. Battles are fought, conflicts resolved, and heroes return home. Yet their experiences leave subtle imprints on their world, echoing in the hearts of those they encounter. Even when a story seems to close, it leaves behind whispers of continuity, threads that will weave into the next adventure, the next challenge, the next transformation. The relationships of Oo's characters mirror this pattern. Friendships evolve, alliances shift, and romantic bonds deepen or fade, yet each change carries significance. Marceline and Princess Bubblegum's complex history, for example, reflects the ebb and flow of understanding and reconciliation. The connection between Finn and Jake, though constant, is also shaped by years of shared trials, laughter, and quiet reflection. Even the Ice King, whose existence has been marked by isolation and sorrow, finds moments of clarity and connection, reminding us that no life is static and no soul is beyond transformation. In contemplating these shifts, we begin to see a larger pattern emerge. The story of Ooh is less about fixed outcomes and more about movement. It is about cycles of creation and decay, endings and beginnings, joy and sorrow. It is a world where nothing truly vanishes, where memories, actions, and choices persist, gently shaping what comes next. This awareness, subtle as a whisper, encourages reflection and calm, inviting us to see that every ending in Ooh is also an opportunity for renewal, and every transformation carries the seeds of something beautiful yet to unfold. As Ooh continues its quiet evolution, it becomes clear that transformation is not limited to heroes, villains, or kingdom. It permeates the very essence of life itself. Even time seems to flow differently here, bending around pivotal events and intimate moments alike. The threads of past, present, and future intertwine, creating a tapestry that is both intricate and gentle, reflecting the complexity of existence without ever overwhelming it. In this way, Ooh mirrors the journey of those who inhabit it, a balance of continuity and change, of endings softly giving rise to beginnings. Finn's journey exemplifies this delicate balance. His adventures may conclude, his battles may be won or lost, but the essence of who he has become persists. Courage, compassion, and curiosity remain woven to his character, shaping how he perceives the world and interacts with it. Even as he faces the uncertainty of adulthood or the lingering questions about his place in history and the multiverse, Finn carries forward the lessons of his past. Each choice, each challenge, each quiet moment of reflection contributes to the evolving story of both himself and the land he calls home. Jake's evolution, though often quieter, is equally profound. He learns to navigate the responsibilities of family, love, and friendship while maintaining the playful spirit that defines him. His ability to adapt, to stretch both physically and emotionally, allows him to act as a bridge between generations, perspective, and even reality. Through Jake, we see that transformation is not always about outward change. It can also be an internal harmony, a growing alignment between desires, actions, and wisdom, gently guiding others along the same path. The kingdoms themselves continue to transform alongside their inhabitants. The Candy Kingdom learns to balance tradition with empathy. The Fire Kingdom tempers its intensity with understanding. And the Ice Kingdom gradually embraces connection over isolation. These shifts are rarely immediate, often unfolding over years, but they illustrate the quiet power of cumulative change. Even the smallest act of kindness, the simplest gesture of diplomacy, or a brief moment of understanding can ripple outward, gradually reshaping entire realms and influencing the course of history. Endings, in this context, are gentle rather than abrupt. Adventures conclude not with a dramatic flourish, but with reflection, reconciliation, and subtle acknowledgement of growth. Conflicts are resolved with care, choices are weighed with consideration, and heroes return to the rhythms of everyday life. These conclusions do not erase the past. Rather, they honor it, allowing lessons learned to seed new beginning. Every resolution, whether large or small, is a reminder that life in Ooh is a continuous cycle of growth, loss, and renewal. The relationship between characters further emphasizes this theme. Bonds deepen, evolve, and occasionally fade, yet their effects are enduring. Marceline and Princess Bubblegum, for instance, navigate a history of friendship, conflict, and reconciliation that highlights the importance of patience, understanding, and shared experience. Finn and Jake's companionship, steadfast yet ever-adapting, demonstrates that continuity and change are not contradictory but complementary forces. Even those once seen as isolated or antagonistic, such as the Ice King, find moments of connection and insight that echo across time and space. Transformation in Ooh is also reflected in the land itself. Forests grow where ruins once stood, rivers carve new paths, and mountains shift imperceptibly with the passage of years. Even magical phenomena, auroras, dimensional rifts, and cosmic alignment illustrate the constant ebb and flow of creation and renewal. These environmental changes serve as a backdrop for the evolving stories of heroes, kingdoms, and cosmic forces, reinforcing the interconnectedness of all things and the delicate balance between permanent and impermanent. The age of adventure, viewed through this lens, is as much about internal growth as it is about external exploration. Heroes, kingdoms, and landscapes alike evolve through experience, reflection, and the passage of time. Every choice made, every action taken, and every moment of empathy contributes to the ongoing story of Ooh. Endings, rather than signifying closure, act as gentle guides, leading naturally into new beginnings, new adventures, and new understanding. Even as we reflect on ending, it is important to notice how Ooh carries forward the echoes of what has passed. Memories linger in the ruins of ancient cities, in the songs sung around a campfire, and in the quiet stories shared between friends. These echoes shape the present in subtle ways, guiding decisions, inspiring courage, and reminding all who dwell in the land that nothing is ever truly lost. Every adventure, no matter how small, contributes to the ongoing narrative of Ooh, forming layers upon layers of history, memory, and meaning. The concept of new beginnings in Ooh is equally gentle. They do not arrive as sudden storms or dramatic ruptures, but as quiet invitations to explore, to learn, and to connect. Finn and Jake, for instance, continually encounter opportunities to grow and to embrace change, whether it is through meeting new friends, discovering hidden corners of their world, or understanding perspectives different from their own. These beginnings are not separate from endings, they are woven together, each giving context and resonance to the other, forming a cycle that is both comforting and eternal. Princess Bubblegum's journey mirrors this duality of endings and beginning. Her role as ruler involves constant adaptation, whether responding to political challenges, scientific discoveries, or the needs of her people. She demonstrates that transformation requires patience, reflection, and empathy. Through her, we see that leadership, like life, is not a series of isolated events, but a continuous process of learning, adjusting, and nurturing growth, both in oneself and in others. Marceline, too, embodies transformation. Her long life allows her to witness centuries of change, giving her a perspective that is both wise and tender. She carries the memories of the past, the joys and sorrows of relationship, and the lessons of countless experience, yet she remains open to the possibilities of the present and the future. Marceline reminds us that transformation is ongoing, a journey that continues long after the most obvious adventures have ended, and that embracing change is a form of courage in itself. Even the Ice King, who often appears as a figure of chaos and isolation, finds a measure of transformation in the subtle connections he forms with others. The recognition of his past, his loneliness, and his desires allows him to grow, even if imperfectly, demonstrating that change is possible for all beings, regardless of history or circumstance. Ooh's world is generous. It allows for evolution, reconciliation, and the gentle unfolding of understanding over time. The land itself participates in this cycle. Forests, mountains, rivers, and skies are in constant motion, reshaping themselves as centuries pass. What was once barren becomes fertile. What was once dangerous becomes a place of refuge or wonder. Even magical phenomena, portals, cosmic rifts, and residual energies from past conflicts serve as reminders that transformation is a natural and ongoing process, and that the world of Ooh, though scarred and rebuilt countless times, continues to thrive. The age of adventure, viewed through this lens, becomes less a series of individual quests and more a meditation on growth, resilience, and the beauty of impermanence. Heroes and kingdoms alike are defined not solely by their victories or losses, but by their capacity to learn, to adapt, and to embrace the cycles of change. Endings are gentle guides, not abrupt stops, and beginnings are quiet invitations, encouraging exploration, reflection, and hope. In this way, the conclusion of one era in Ooh does not signify closure, but a transition. The story of Finn and Jake, of kingdoms and cosmic forces, of friendships and conflict, flows naturally into new chapters, new perspective, and new possibilities. The world, though ever-changing, remains connected through memory, love, and the ongoing pulse of life itself. In observing these transformations, we come to understand that Ooh's history is a living story, one that continues to evolve, reflect, and inspire, offering a quiet, enduring reassurance that even as some stories end, others are quietly beginning. As we wander through these final reflections, we begin to see that the story of Ooh is not defined solely by battles, quests, or the triumphs of heroes. It is defined by the quiet, enduring rhythms of change, the way a hero learns to forgive, the way a kingdom adapts to new rulers, the way friendships evolve over time. Transformation is never abrupt here. It moves gently, like the wind through the trees or the slow rise and fall of a river, shaping the land and its inhabitants with patience and care. New beginnings, too, are woven seamlessly into this tapestry. Each ending carries within it the potential for growth, understanding, and connection. Finn and Jake's journeys do not conclude with a single moment of victory or clarity. They unfold gradually in the choices they make, the lessons they embrace, and the bonds they nurture. Even as adventures reach their apparent conclusions, the essence of those experiences persists, forming the foundation for future discoveries, friendships, and challenges. In Ooh, life is cyclical, and every ending naturally gestures toward a fresh horizon, a soft invitation to continue exploring and learning. Princess Bubblegum, Marceline, and other central figures exemplify this continuity. Their stories reflect the subtle interplay between the past and the present, between reflection and action. They remind us that growth is not linear, that understanding may arrive slowly, and that every choice carries resonance far beyond the immediate moment. Through them, we learn that transformation is not a solitary process, but one that interacts with the lives of others, shaping not just individual destiny, but the broader contours of Ooh itself. Even the landscapes of Ooh bear witness to these ongoing cycles. Forests regrow where devastation once lay. Rivers alter their courses over centuries, and mountains subtly shift, sculpted by time and magic alike. These changes mirror the internal evolution of the world's inhabitants. Scars remain, yet they coexist with beauty, resilience, and potential. Cosmic forces continue to hum in the background, reminding all who dwell here that Ooh is a living, breathing entity, responsive to both grand events and the quiet, tender choices made by its hero. The multiverse, too, continues its silent rhythm. Prismo, the Nightosphere, Grob-Gob, Globgrod, and other cosmic entities maintain a subtle balance, their influence guiding and shaping possibilities without forcing them. Ooh exists within this intricate web, a nexus where countless threads of potential converge. Each adventure, each act of courage or kindness sends ripples outward, touching realms unseen, affecting lives in ways that may never be fully known. And yet the characters move through this vast, interconnected reality with calm determination, demonstrating that even amidst cosmic complexity, thoughtful action and compassion hold profound weight. Endings in Ooh are never truly final. They are invitations to pause, reflect, and prepare for what comes next. They are moments of quiet understanding, of lessons absorbed, of connections deepened. In this way, the history of Ooh reminds us that life itself is cyclical, a rhythm of growth and rest, of challenge and resolution, of love remembered and newly discovered. Transformation is ongoing, gentle, and inevitable, shaping the land, its people, and the countless stories that continue to unfold across time and space. And so, as we settle into this final reflection, we recognize the enduring beauty of change. Ooh's history is a testament to resilience, curiosity, and the quiet courage to keep moving forward. Heroes will rise and fall, kingdoms will evolve, and cosmic forces will continue to hum softly in the background. But through it all, the essence of life persists, a gentle, ever-flowing current of possibility, connection, and wonder. Every ending is balanced by a beginning. Every loss contains the seed of discovery, and every quiet moment holds the potential for insight and growth. As we drift gently from the stories of Ooh into the calm of our own quiet worlds, let us carry this gentle understanding with us. The transformation, endings, and new beginnings are natural, beautiful, and inseparable from the flow of existence. In the stillness of reflection, in the soft rhythm of breath, and in the gentle unfolding of time, we find that every ending is merely the beginning of something quietly extraordinary. Good night.